Welcome back to Riders Reset. Thanks for joining me today, and I'm here with Rumba. So today's exercise is going to be in horsemanship. So when I talk about horsemanship, I think about caring for the horse, things outside of riding. So what encompasses horsemanship to me is making sure our equipment's clean, that our horse is well cared for, that if there's any sort of veterinary first aid things that we need to be doing, that we're comfortable doing those. So practicing your horsemanship skills is a really important part of your interaction with your horse. So for today's exercise, I want to do something that I think is pretty bonding, and we're going to just do a simple grooming on Rumba. Now you're going to need a couple of tools to do this. You can start out really simple with just a few brushes and you're ready to go. To start off, I like to use a curry comb. So a curry comb is great for really stimulating the horse's skin and getting those oils that we want to come out of their coat. It's also great if you have a horse who loves to roll and gets a bit dirty. Rumba does like to roll, but she's not too dirty today. One thing I love about doing a basic curry on my horse is she tends to be a little itchy. Like you can see here, she's enjoying that spot. So I'll just sort of linger sometimes in those spots where she likes the curry. Oftentimes in social interactions, horses will groom each other. So this is us bonding. It might not feel like bonding, but I promise you it is. When I'm using a curry comb, I'm going in circular motions to stimulate her skin and loosen the hair. With a curry comb like this that's pretty dense and hard, I'm not going to use it anywhere where there's a lot of bones really close to her skin. So for example, I'm not going to go down her leg, and I'm not going to go here along her spine, just because that can be a little uncomfortable depending on how sensitive your horse is. It's also good to just observe some of your horse's favorite spots. So I know she usually likes this spot. A good scratching here goes a long way. We've talked about positive reinforcement before, and positive reinforcement doesn't have to just be using treats in training. It can also be scratching your horse's favorite spot. So this is a great time to just observe again where your horse's favorite spots are to be scratched, and use those in the future when you want to reward them. All right, from the curry comb, then I'll move on to a stiffer brush. You might have noticed when we were using the curry comb that Rumba's expression changed a bit when I would hit those spots that she really enjoyed scratching. And I can tell that she enjoyed them because she would sort of twist her nose in a certain way. A lot of times if you've seen horses, when they scratch each other, they'll make that same face motion where her nose will get a little long. Let's see if I can recreate it. I think she's looking at something. But I'll notice she'll sort of lean into it. Her eye might get really soft. And that's how I know she's enjoying it, is based off of her facial expressions. There, she's getting nice and soft. She's twitching this part of her nose the slightest bit. That's how you can tell she's enjoying something. You'll notice if a horse does not enjoy certain spots, if they start to pin their ears, or they'll pull their nostril up and look pretty uncomfortable. She sometimes will do that when I'm putting the saddle on, but they'll definitely let you know if they're not enjoying a spot. When I have the medium brush here, I'm just going to go with her hair, and I'm going to do shorter flicking strokes to get all that dirt that we just curried up out of her coat. It's a little windy today, so you might even see a little bit of the dirt coming up and going in the wind. This brush is pretty soft, so we're gonna be able to use this along her back and also down her leg. When you're brushing legs, a safety tip is make sure that you're standing far enough away, that your feet are far enough away, that if she were to stomp at a fly, that you're not going to get your foot stepped on. And then I'll work down her whole body. Some horses will not enjoy their face being brushed. Rumba does enjoy it. If your horse is not at a place where they enjoy their face being brushed, or if they just like a really soft brush, only do that. The skin on their face is extremely sensitive, so you want to be really careful and not force that. More things to observe as far as her behavior while I'm brushing here is she keeps relaxing one hind leg. That's another thing that's telling me that she's feeling pretty relaxed and she's in a lower emotional state. A lot of times, riders who are newer to being around horses will be a little concerned when they see a horse resting one hind leg, thinking that they're going to kick, but a lot of times the horse is just simply resting and in a very comfortable position. So it's really just about reading that and the other body language that they're giving you in that moment. After I've done the medium brush, I'll switch out for a soft bristled brush. And this I like to think of as the finishing brush. So what this is going to do is get the rest of that dust and dirt out of her coat. Now, again, horses in the wild, I'm going to do again just these short flicking strokes to get that dirt and dust out. Horses in the wild will often, like I said before, groom each other, but they also will need some of that dirt in their coat to protect against the elements or to protect against insects. A lot of times horses will roll to protect against insects. So they're not needing the same amount of grooming that our domesticated horses are. All right, to finish up the grooming, we're going to grab our two final tools, the hoof pick and a mane comb. Now, I don't typically do the mane comb every single time I'm riding or every single time I come out to see Rumba. A lot of times, especially if you're brushing out a horse's tail and not using any sort of detangler, you can pull quite a bit of that hair out of the tail, and they obviously need that to be able to control flies. So you just want to be a little careful with how often you're brushing a tail actually. We obviously don't want it to have a bunch of knots, or sometimes they'll almost get what looks like dreadlocks in the tail. We want to avoid that, but just be mindful of how often you are brushing. So I'm going to go along, just go through her forelock, and just like I would brush my own hair. Rumba has a shortened mane, so hers isn't too long and doesn't get too many knots, luckily. And we are going to skip her tail today because I don't want to rip out any hair. All right, now when we're picking out the hooves, this is another time we need to make sure we're being extremely safe. So what I'll do is, if I'm picking her right front leg here, I'm going to hold the hoof pick in my left hand. I'm going to make sure that I'm standing with my feet far enough apart that if she were to stomp for any reason, that my feet aren't going to be close by. I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to run it down her leg, I'm going to run it down the inside of the leg, and she's going to be a good girl and go ahead and pick up the foot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the foot with my right hand, and I'm going to use the left hand to pick out both sides of the frog. And I'm going to set the foot back down and step away. Now, if you have trouble picking up your horse's foot, I have a few tips for you. One thing you can do is, she's going to make it too easy, but you can squeeze the chestnut that's here on the inside of the leg. A lot of times that will encourage your horse to pick up. You can also run down the tendon here and pinch lightly right above the fetlock, and they'll often pick up from there too. Same thing on a hind leg. I'm just going to run my hand down, stand far enough away, pick up the foot. Sometimes you might find that horses, when you're picking up the hind leg, they will sort of pick it up and hinge all of the joints. They might even do a few little kickouts. That's oftentimes I found they're just stretching. That's not a position that the horse's hind leg is in very often. So don't think it's inherently bad. They might just be stretching. Just give them a second. You can always drop the foot if you're feeling uncomfortable and step away. Good girl. It's important to pick out your horse's hooves every time you ride, or anytime that you're checking on them, because abscesses can form super easily. So we want to make sure that there's nothing going on there. There could be a rock or some other foreign object stuck in their shoe, or if they're barefoot, just in their hoof. And that can be extremely uncomfortable to the horse. One time I actually found another horse's tooth in my horse's foot. So you never know what you're going to find, and you just got to make sure that they're clear, that they're not uncomfortable. Think about if you get a rock in your shoe, how uncomfortable that is to walk around. We don't want our horses to be feeling that way. So this is just a very basic grooming of how you can groom your horse head to tail and just get them, cleaned up, feeling good. And it's, again, just a bonding experience. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Get out, groom your horse, spend some time together. It will definitely go a long way in your relationship. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.